Secretary-General of the ANC, Ace Magashule, who has 30 days to step aside as he's facing corruption charges, prove more difficult to budge. That's the title of a column in the Mail and Guardian written by Professor Richard Calland. He's the Associate Professor in Public Law at the University of Cape Town, and he joins me now from Cape Town. Richard, great to chat to you. So the staying power of the Ever Given versus the staying power of Ace Magashule. It's an amusing comparison, of course, but do you think that ultimately the SG will just have to budge?
Well, thank you for being so gracious as to describe the rather strained metaphor as being amusing. It kind of stuck in my mind that here was this ship causing this tailback in the Suez Canal, affecting supply chains everywhere. And the metaphor really extends this way, that Ace Magashule is a real thorn in the side of Cyril Ramaphosa and his reform efforts, both inside the ANC and indeed in government. So that connection made sense to me. And of course, both are proving to be tough to dislodge. And it seems that the big ship is going to be moving first, and that Ace Magashule will not be going anywhere soon or fast. But to answer your question finally, the short answer is yes, he will have to go, because he now faces a really fairly clear decision. I say fairly because the qualification is that there is a set of guidelines that need to guide a process. But underneath all of that, the core decision of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, its highest constitutional body between its 5 yearly electoral conferences, has said he must go. And within 30 days, and there can be no review of that decision, it's simply about implementing it.
Do you think the power balance within the ANC has shifted significantly since the elective conference in 2017, when Ramaphosa was elected by a whisker? Would you say he's got significantly more muscle now than then?
No, I think it shifted very soon after the Nasrec conference. And what I think has confused many people and surprised and disappointed even some of Ramaphosa's own supporters is the apparent caution that he exercises when deploying his own power. Political leaders, and I happened to talk to a couple earlier today, speak of how you have a certain amount of political capital when you lead an organization or a government. And you have to deploy that capital, of course, very shrewdly at the right moments and the right time. Right after Nasrec, Ramaphosa had a lot of power. He just won that election. Power has a gravitational pull. And I think immediately after that, there was a big move towards him. It went from being 50-50 to 75, 80-20, something like that. And that was reflected in the election of the National Working Committee of the ANC in January 2018, in which Ramaphosa enjoys a very substantial majority. The other moment was after the 2019 election, an election that Ramaphosa was a great asset for the ANC. Again, he didn't press on. But I think what we've seen in the last few weeks is that his supporters have been pushing him hard to say, look, you have to get rid of Magashule. He's a real danger to your hopes for a second term. He's a danger, therefore, for the organization and for the country. And now we need to be more decisive. And so the word from my sources coming out of Monday's final denouement was that things have been more decisive, less wishy-washy, to use the phrase of one, and that it was ultimately a very decisive NEC meeting. That is the writing on the wall for Ace Magashule. When the NEC makes a clear decision, you have to act on it, otherwise you defy the organization at your peril.
It's really problematic that in the middle of a pandemic and a massive economic crisis, that the ANC is having these internal battles. Of course, the point you make in your article is that the second and third most powerful parties, the DA and the EFF, have got their own problems as well. Heading for local elections sometime this year, where does that leave the average voter in terms of making a decision?
Well, the point I make in the column is that South African politics can do better than this. The ANC, as you say, is preoccupied by its own concerns and very divided, clearly, despite the fact that Ramaphosa is winning and will continue to win, I believe. But despite that, I think people are entitled to be cross with the ANC, frustrated at their preoccupation with their own factionalism. The DA has gone backwards, of course. The 2019 election was a real disaster for it. It retreated in terms of its support. It's now elected a leader who I think is struggling to set the stage for himself at a national level. He may not have the leadership skills, or he may be, in fact, politically tone deaf in some senses. And they've kind of retreated. And Helen Zille, behind the scenes, is rebuilding that party, and I think she will set it back on a strategic course in due course. But that's going to take a bit of time. Meanwhile, because of the VBS scandals and other corruption issues, the EFF have not exactly covered themselves in glory since 2019. So none of the other rivals to the ANC have been able to take advantage of the weaknesses of the ANC. And that raises a question. Is there space for something else? Could the smaller parties begin to collaborate, to cooperate, and create some kind of strategic alliance that would tell the electorate there is hope out there, there is another way?
Thank you so much, Professor Richard Calland, Associate Professor in Public Law at the University of Cape Town.